men, which I think is a direct correlation to the. A couple days ago, Psychology Today released this article about the rise of lonely single men, which I think is a direct correlation to the rise of like Andrew Tate, alpha male, fresh and fit culture. The article says dating opportunities for heterosexual men are diminishing as healthy relationship standards increase. Younger.
Greetings, it's your buddy, your pal, your friend, your teacher, your guide, Uncle Artist, ABW. Dating opportunities are not diminishing. Men, true MACs. What is a MAC? A man of aptitude, charm, and knowledge. Men who govern themselves accordingly as MACs, as men of aptitude, charm, and knowledge are diminishing. Let's talk about it. So, in certain parts of the world, women outnumber us 7-1. You'll see statistics. You'll see in certain pockets of the world, women can outnumber us men 15-1. Basically, what that boils down to is there's no shortage of women. There's no shortage of opportunities. There's a shortage of men who know how to conduct themselves, and who know how to be a man that women desire, that women desire to slip into their femininity. When I was, I got 3 daughters, and whenever I went to when each one of them were born, when I went to the nursery, the ratio of little girls to little boys was alarming. Like I said, 7-1 in most places, 15-1 in a lot of places. That means that, again, there's no shortage of females. Now, I will give credence to the fact that we, as the collective consciousness progresses through time and space, things change, ebb and flow, and women today are a different breed. And I can say honestly that I'm glad I'm not a part of the dating scene. And so that, a young man may say, well, Uncle Artist, how can you give me advice? How can you tell me anything when you're not even a part of the scene? Well, I can speak very objectively because, and very astutely to the nature of women, because the nature of women is the nature of women, and that will never change. It will evolve. It can evolve and have its nuances according to how society is set up. And I recognize that, and I acknowledge that, the fact that women today are more, take on more masculine traits more than ever. Women today, well, I won't get into the details, but yeah, we'll just say in a nutshell, women today take on more masculine traits. But I put the onus on us men. I'm always of the belief that as men, we love to position ourselves or define ourselves as leaders. Well, as a leader has to take responsibility. So I'm of the belief that the only reason that women are taking on these more masculine traits and roles is because men have forfeited their masculinity. Men are walking around in hoochie daddy shorts. Men have purses nowadays. I'm all for personal grooming, but the level of vanity that men are indulging in nowadays is unprecedented. It's disturbing. And that's just a superficial representation of what's going on the inside. We know sociologically that we have now I guess you could say two generations of men who were abandoned by their fathers. There's no uncles, there's no grandpas, there's no dads. That generation was abandoned by their fathers. They were raised by mothers. And then they raised fathers. They raised sons and daughters. They raised daughters who didn't have. See, a lot of the older generation, even when they were abandoned by their fathers, they had mothers who were able to compensate because they were raised by their fathers. And so they still had the knowledge of what it took to raise a man. But then you have those men who weren't raised by their fathers, who are raising daughters, who have to raise men alone, and they don't have a point of reference for men, and so they're trying to raise their sons, and they don't have a point of reference like maybe the previous generation of women had. And then you may have those women's brothers, or those women, or those men, that generation who had sons who were left fatherless. They raised sons, or they gave rise to sons who didn't have fathers, and so on and so forth. You have multiple generations now of fatherlessness, of a lack of manly guidance, and it shows as the collective consciousness of society goes along the timeline of history. We see it. It's showing. So there's no shortage of women, and it's crazy how in society the ratios of women is 7-1, 15-1. They outnumber us, is what I'm saying. They outnumber us, and but it's crazy how on dating apps men make up 62%. So their competition is fierce. And I'll talk maybe more about social media, acting specifically dating apps. I have to admit I'm pretty out of touch with the dating apps. I have no need for dating apps, but I do have nephews and partners and homeboys and stuff like that that keep me somewhat up to date with the dating apps things, and maybe we'll talk about that. But I'm not. I'm just of the belief that you put yourself at a disadvantage going on those dating apps. Go outside. I'm outside. To answer the question, how can I qualify to talk about this current day and age? First of all, I do have of age daughters, nieces, family members that I'm very much involved in their lives, and so we dialogue. So I know, just the general conversation, the general mood of what's going on out there. And not to get too personal, but I'm outside as far as business. I run entertainment venues. I run a staffing agency. Specifically in healthcare, and healthcare, is female dominated. So I have a lot of workers, a lot of employees. That most of my employees are women. Most of my partners are women. And so while these are platonic or business relationships, they are relationships nonetheless. And principles as far as female male dynamics still apply. Principles are principles because they always apply. And the dynamic between a man and a woman, there's always going to be common ground between whether it be platonically or business. there are rules and there are principles that are always going to apply. And so I know, I have young employees that are 19, 20 years old, fine little things sometimes, they want to get with the boss. I'm not, those days are past me. It doesn't, that, it's just not advantageous to me. There's no need for it, for me to cross that line. But, when it works to my advantage, the fact that, if a female employee likes me to that level, again, as a P would, I'm not, I don't consider myself a P. I got respect for real P. I know real P's in life. I know real 304s in the life, and I won't claim to be that. But again, principles are principles that always apply. Even as a married man, you have to apply the rules of engagement, much like a P would. Now, there's always extremes. There's levels, but there's a basic underlying principle as to how you conduct yourself, whether that be with your wife, your girlfriend, even your daughters, to an extent, how you relate to them, your employees, and yes, even when you're dating. Okay. Let's continue watching this video, and we'll talk more.
Today released this article about the rise of lonely single men, which I think is a direct correlation to the rise of like Andrew Tate, alpha male, fresh and fit culture. The article says dating opportunities for heterosexual men are diminishing as healthy relationship standards increase. Younger and middle-aged men are the loneliest they've ever been. We can fucking tell. And it's probably going to get worse. Over the last 30 years, men have become a larger portion of that growing group of long-term single people, also known as incels. And while you don't actually need to be in a relationship to be happy, men typically are happier and healthier when partnered, because women are doing their domestic and emotional labor for them. So 62% of people on dating apps are men, which is why women are being pickier because they have more options. Skills deficits. For men, this means a relationship skills gap that, if not addressed, will likely lead to fewer dating opportunities, less patience for poor communication skills, and longer periods of being single. The problem for men is that emotional connection is the lifeblood of healthy long-term love. Emotional connection requires all the skills that families are still not consistently teaching their young boys. I love how...
So yeah, she touched on kind of what I said. Boys to men are lacking emotional intelligence. She said emotional connection skills. We'll just say emotional intelligence. Knowing how to relate to women. And see, a lot of what these I always refer to fresh and fit because they're so popular right now. She said alpha male. I've seen on here she said refer to alpha male strategies, and I'll talk about alpha male strategies. I actually like that dude. I like alpha male strategies. I haven't really poked a hole in anything he said. I can't poke a hole in anything he's ever presented because he's legit. But I will say something real quick on alpha male strategy. I'll probably do a video reviewing him, reviewing some of his philosophy, talk about him. But I will say that he's a country dude. I'm a country boy. I mean, I've refined my diction and my speech over the years, but I'm a country dude, and us country dudes, we just carry ourselves in a different way. And then country girls, country females, or small town females, he's from Alabama, I'm in Texas. Country girls are a little different. It's just a different vibe. But anyway, but the whole stratosphere around being an alpha male, I don't even like to define myself. I don't even like that. I don't like that term. I don't, and I'll break that down in another time as far as alpha myths involving being an alpha male. Because whenever you watch or listen to these so-called experts or these guys who are talking about being an alpha male. Everything is always so surface level and superficial. It's about and it's so ego driven. You know, if your girl doesn't do this, if your girl is, yeah, I'm of the belief. I always say, I think I say that a lot. I'm of the belief, but because I'm of the belief because I'm not an authority. You don't have to listen to me. I don't know shit. Okay, you don't know shit, and I don't know shit. All we can know goes off of experience, but um, I believe I do have a belief, and I believe my beliefs to be fairly consistent and accurate with reality. Um, you have to be, as a man, egoless. Ego is something that needs to be checked at all times. There's something to be said for being meek. You know, I reference the Bible quite a bit. You'll hear me. I'm a man of faith, and I read the Bible not so much as a religious text. I mean, I'm religious and I'm spiritual, and you know that's that. When people say that, that's all. That can be a red flag too. I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. Guys, that people can spin that and take that to. But anyway, um, as a person who studies the Bible for the wisdom that you get from it, they describe Moses is described as being the meekest man in the land. And I know since it rhymes with weak, or just because of definition, or just because of how people have perceived it over time, meek gets associated with being weak. So when you read that about Moses, and if you know about Moses, Moses was described as being a very, or he was described as being very a physically capable man. He killed a man with his bare hands. He was known to be very volatile. He was known to be someone that you just didn't mess with. So why would they describe Moses as being meek? Well, in ancient texts, in ancient vernacular and words had so much more meaning and depth and substance than what we know in standard English. There were whole stories and concepts around one single word, and for us who are native English speakers, we really can't fully grasp it. Like in Hebrew and Aramaic, we really can't fully grasp the gravity and the depth of language, the way they used it. So when we say a word in our Western world in English, we say the word, we have a definition, and that's what it is. In Aramaic and Hebrew language, again, there was so much depth and there was a story behind one single word. So the word meek was there was basically the story behind it was, or the depiction, the image behind it was basically like a wild horse. A wild horse with all this energy, all this power, all this capability. But with all this energy and power and capability, it only is effective when it's put under subjection to its master, to someone who could bridle that horse and focus that energy towards a goal. So what does that mean? That was the image of meek, a wild horse put under control. That's what being meek is. we know as men we have a certain power. Okay, we know this inherently. You don't have to yield your power most of the time as a man. I even with my children or with my spouse, it's obvious that I can be physically dominating. I have a deep voice. I can dominate with my presence, with my physicality. I can dominate being a breadwinner. I can dominate as far as yielding a financial barrier, boundaries. I can. There's a lot of power that comes with being a man. Again, I'll take the finances out of it. Just as a man, just being a man, there's a power being a man that women will always reckon. There will always be recognizable and apparent between a man and a woman. Okay, now there are lots of women that can whoop a man's ass. Like my wife, I put my wife against a lot of these suckers out here. Like if it was to go down in the fight, I'd take my wife to fight over a lot of these suckers. But we're not talking about that. There's still, no matter what, as far as physics, there's just the dynamic between man and woman. There's a domination in that's just a nature God-given thing. Whether a woman or anybody wants to deny that, it is. There's a God-given dominance that's given to men. Now, with you've heard the term or the phrase, and if you haven't heard it, you need to learn. With great power, with great responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. And so, being an alpha male is not about asserting your dominance. It's about being meek. It's about having your dominance and your power be under control. It's about not. It's about going about your business in a certain way to where a woman is not going to have to test your dominance. And if she does, you have to exercise the right judgment to know how much of a reminder of your dominance you need to give them. Okay, yeah. And even in my own relationship, I certain times just in a even in the most healthy relationships, you're gonna have contrast, you're gonna have disagreements, and it's no matter how much of a alpha male you think you are, your woman that might test you a little bit, and you have to be able to show some restraint. Sometimes you might have to. sometimes you have to understand when you actually are wrong and you deserve to for her to bitch at you or something like that, whatever the case may be. But then there are times when you just have to. And I've never struck a female. I've never got physical. The most, like in our younger years when we were young and toxic, I might have grabbed my woman by the shoulders, shook her a little bit, and even that maybe wasn't always necessary, but I did, and it is what it is. But there's something to be said for consistency in manhood that will play itself out to where a woman she's only going to cross so far as her boundaries, and women will get out of pocket. It will happen. A woman will test you, but the test is not how much you can show how dominant you can be. The test is to show how meek you can be. That shows how strong you are. That shows that restraint. That really shows how strong you are, because that shows that your ego is not so fragile. Okay, I don't know how I got off into that tangent, but let's continue to listen to what this lady said. Oh, I know why I said that. Because listen, being an alpha male is not about how loud you can bark. That's what it boils down to. It's about how much restraint you can show. It's about how you can set, but at the same time, it's about how you can set boundaries and stick to them. And you've heard me say before that your greatest power that you can yield is the power to leave, the power to exit the relationship. The greatest power that you can demonstrate is the power to not match her when she is excessively emotional. Women are emotional creatures. We know this. And so the skill of emotional intelligence is to know how to not match wits with her. There are times when she might be yelling, and again, if you have a pattern of a consistent pattern of being what you should be as a man, it's not going to be the first thing. Now, I'm not saying she won't, but she's not going to be so quick to just jump into just reading you up and down and calling you all kinds of names and telling you all about yourself or all your insecurity, basically just reading towards your insecurities. And if she does, there's a way to, again, practice restraint. There's a way to effectively check that shit at the same time. You know, there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. You know, sometimes I do have to tell my wife, you know, hey, okay, all right now. All right, you know. And usually I really don't have to go past that, you know. And I don't want to. I don't want to have to go past that, you know, that warning. Like, okay, you set your boundaries. And then once you set those boundaries, live up to that. And you might have to have some darts in your pocket that you might throw at it real quick. Like, okay, but your ultimate trick card that you can throw at her is your ability to leave. And if she just lets you leave, then that's a boundary that has been broken that you need to stick to. If she just lets you, most of the time a woman is not going to just let you leave for good. You know, you might be able to leave just to get away and cool the air, but most time a woman, if she really is digging you, if she's really about you, she won't just let you exit the relationship that easily. She'll either come back apologizing, or you know, it's going to be understood that there's that she's remorseful in some type of way. But I digress, man. Let's continue. You know I can ramble, man. Let's talk about this. Let's listen to this.
That are making you single. Still, I basically view alpha male culture as like men, particularly incels, having like a temper tantrum because this is happening, right? Because they're encouraging the opposite of what psychology today is saying works, which is being a nice human being, being compassionate, communicating well, seeing women as human beings, things like that alpha male culture is very much advocating against. It's literally a temper tantrum from the men who don't have the skills to be in a healthy relationship.
Yeah, see, I didn't know she was gonna say that, but she's absolutely right. That's basically what I was saying. She summed up way better than I could with my ranting. Yeah, you demonstrate yourself to be emotionally immature, trying to flex and go on these temper tantrums. And you might not see it as a temper tantrum because you might as a man, you may display all the masculine traits as far as your voice, your projection, and your posture, but it still very much carries the same attributes as a child throwing a temper tantrum, and that's a turn off to women. That's a turn off to women, and that is a trigger for women, or that's something that women can use to their advantage. That's something that they will, if they know that they can trigger you to that extent, and she will use that. She'll continue to use that. There's nothing wrong. Now I know they say nice guys finish last. No, yeah, nice guys finish last. Kind guys. See, there's a difference between nice and being kind. Being emotionally mature. Being someone who is emotionally available and emotionally mature, and being kind and being a gentleman. Okay, my grandpa was I described Moses being a very capable, violent man, but he was a man who over time became a man under control. Now he still lost control over time. As a matter of fact, him losing control is one of the reasons why he wasn't able to enter into the promised land. But everybody knew what was inside of him as far as his capabilities, but he controlled it, and that's what made him meek. He was strong. He was one of the strongest men, if not the strongest man in the land, but he was the most disciplined as far as his emotion, and that made him meek. As a man, again, you know your power that's inside of you. You know the power that you yield physically and dominating just as a man, and you don't have to assert that. You just have to be. There's nothing wrong with dialogue, communication, and she said it. That most of you guys, I won't say you guys, because you guys, if you listen to me, you're learning how to be a man of aptitude, charm, and knowledge. But if you watch these, again, I won't put the actual alpha male strategies. I won't put AMS in this group. But the alpha male conversation, red pill conversation, most of these are very fragile, hurt men that you see. Men who don't know how to communicate their emotions, aren't in touch with their emotions. There's nothing wrong with a man being in touch with his emotions. There's nothing wrong with being emotionally available. Now, there are your limits and boundaries. A man shouldn't be just sitting up complaining and crying and taking on the traits of a female as far as of emotions. But a man should be very aware, self-aware. Be very self-aware and be able to be vulnerable and be able at certain levels and be able to admit they're wrong. Be able to talk through conflict resolution and be able to check their ego. So as far as the rise of single lonely men on these dating apps, go outside. I'm outside, man. If a guy asks me how do I know about women? Again, like I said, man, I got daughters that are reaching that age, nieces, young employees, young partners. So I know what's going on out there. And I know it's tough. It's tough for these young men. A lot of these women are more superficial than ever. I kind of feel bad for these young guys. Y'all gotta have a bag for real now to impress a lot of these women. But that's not the case, man. It seems that way. Yeah, but you got to get off of social media. You got to go outside. There are real women outside that will fuck with you for real, for who you are. Get outside, man, and get rejected. Get outside and have fun. Talk. Like, just be yourself. Get outside. That's what I can say to that. So, and don't be afraid of rejection. Don't even label it or view it as rejection. It's just going about having human interactions. And you never know. You'd be surprised what you'd look up on, man. Like just the other night, man. I like to keep my skills sharp. I don't flirt per se, but I just have conversations. And yeah, man, this young bartender, I was like, boy, this is too easy, too easy, too easy. She was giving me drinks, man. Like, and I wouldn't, I didn't. When I go out, man, I look. Um, I've never been a flashy dude. Like, I might wear a chain or two, a watch. Man, I take pride on being well put together on a budget, very cheap shit, Goodwill, thrift stores and stuff like that. AliExpress, Alibaba, finding clothes online for cheap, finding accessories online for cheap. Man, like you can, if you want to, if you, matter of fact, um, if you want a consultation on style and how to really look like something presentable, how to be a man of aptitude, charm, and knowledge that's attractive to these women out here. Um, Holla at me, man. Just leave me a comment, man, and I'll leave. We can email each other and work something out. Um, but yeah, man, the interaction I had the other day with this young bartender, she was just, man, it was funny, man. Like it makes an old player feel good to know that he still got it. Makes an old player feel good. And nowadays, like I'm not like a. We'll talk about this another time as far as your catch hand, basic tools to your catch hand. We'll talk about that another time. But I just wanted to talk about this real quick. The rise of lonely single men. It's just pitiful, man. It's got to do better. You got to get outside. There's no reason for it. And it's your buddy, your pal, your friend, your teacher, your guide, ABW, Uncle Artist, signing out. Peace and blessings. Take care.